Hi everyone, and welcome back. For today's video, I wanted to do a little sit down chat about my entire journey with anxiety. I shared a little bit about this a few videos ago, and I wanted to go a little more in depth for you and let you in on a little bit more of what it's been like for me, in hopes that if I feel the same way, maybe I can offer you some tips and tricks. Maybe you can offer me some tips and tricks. If you have anything that you do, please comment it below. I love trying new things and figuring out what works for me and what doesn't to relieve me when I'm feeling super anxious or having a panic attack, those sorts of things. So feel free to comment if you have anything that you do that works for you. And with that, let's just get right on into it. I would say that I've had anxiety my entire life. However, I never recognized it as anxiety until I went to college, and it was sophomore year. I kind of forget the timing exactly, but I think it was towards the beginning of sophomore year that I had my first panic attack. But we're gonna back it up a year prior, because that's when my anxiety was extremely bad, but I didn't really realize that's what it was. Sorry, hold on. Okay, everyone, I've been talking about this story, and so this is gonna seem a little out of place, but as I'm talking, I realized I forgot to put a trigger warning, so I'm gonna enter this before I actually start talking about it. But trigger warning, if you struggle with eating and things of that nature, I am going to be talking about it. I do not struggle with that personally, but it is mentioned and talked about in this video. So I just wanted to let you know beforehand. If that is triggering for you, please don't watch. I will let you know what minute to skip to for when I'm done talking about it, if you want to skip to that and you want to skip over the mentions of it. So basically, start of every semester, I would get all of my syllabi and look at them and look at everything that I needed to do and get so overwhelmed, break down, cry, freak out. So I went into college and I was dating my boyfriend from high school, who was also going to the same college. And towards the end of our relationship, he made a comment to me because I had been a very picky eater and wasn't really hungry when I should be hungry. And so I wasn't really eating full meals, but I was snacking a lot, which is actually a symptom of my anxiety, but I had no idea at the time. And I was sensing our relationship was coming to a close, and I was feeling anxious about it, but not necessarily because it was the wrong thing. I knew that our relationship needed to end. It would be better, but I just was afraid because I had gone into college with someone I knew, with a bunch of people from my high school as well. And I felt like I was a step behind everybody because I had dated him into the beginning of the year when everyone is trying to make friends. And so I feel like I had missed the boat in making friendships because I had kind of just stuck with him and then the friends he made, and I made a few friends as well, but I feel like I didn't invest as much as I should have making friends. Anyways, didn't really need to delve into that, but that is a part of what happened. We're at lunch and he sits me down and I'm not really eating, and he goes, "Should I be worried about you?" And I'm sitting there like, what? And he was like, "Are you anorexic?" Just straight up. And I look at him and I'm like, no, I'm not anorexic. Like I'm not having a problem with my relationship with food. Okay. And he kind of just scoffs and doesn't really believe me. And that has sat with me ever since because I didn't know what was going on. So I didn't know how to explain to him that, like, I just lost my appetite because I'm anxious and I'm stressed out. And I'm realizing, like, you're going to break up with me. And I'm pretty sure you broke up with me that day or like the next day. So I was pretty on with what was going on. I was in tune, but I just didn't know how to express what was happening. And so I think that was probably the first big marker of like something's wrong with me and I don't know what's going on. And I didn't find out until a year later, because that was December-ish of my first year of college, my freshman year. And then this panic attack was probably September, October of my sophomore year. So almost exactly a year later. I went back to campus after a break. I think it was fall break. So I think it was probably October. Went back to campus and got out of my car. All of a sudden felt like I couldn't breathe. Tried to call my mom. Call didn't go through. So I called my best friend at the time. She came running because she, which I'm so grateful for. She was like, I know exactly what you're going through. I thought I was dying. I didn't know what it was. And I just told her, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I'm scared. And she was like, you're having a panic attack. You're going to be fine. She came running. She walked me through it. We went and we sat in a classroom because no one was in class because it was still, everyone was coming back from the long weekend. And we sit in the classroom and she's like, you need to talk to your mom. Like, you need to call your mom. You need to tell her what happened. And at this point I was like, no, I'm scared. I don't want to tell her something's wrong with me. I don't want to make her worried about me. So call my mom. She encourages me to utilize our school's free therapy sessions. So I go in to therapy and I'm describing what happens. And the therapist is essentially like, well, you seem like you have all the tools you need. Yes, you have anxiety. Do these things. Okay, done. I was like, oh, great. Cool. I'm going to be fine. Fixable. Trusted the therapist. Looking back, I'm like, that was horrible. They never should have told me that. That was not at all what I was doing. And I had tried to express, like, I'm pretty good at speaking about things and seeming totally fine and not being okay. I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing and rationalizing. And I think that's part of what was going on in my conversation with this therapist. And they thought, like, oh, she's going to be fine. She's self-aware. She'll use these tricks and she'll be fine. No. Had a few panic attacks. That therapist also encouraged me to share it with people close in my life because she was like, they want to help you, blah, blah, blah. No, they didn't. There were some exceptions, let me say, but for the majority, no, they didn't. I literally told one of my close friends and they were like, you're too much. I don't think I can be friends with you anymore. All of this happens, which of course adds to my anxiety. And I'm walking through the rest of my college years aware that I have anxiety, not really knowing what to do about it. Graduate early, a semester early, and go to Nashville because I was pursuing music. I don't know if you know, but I am a songwriter as well. I say that in meaning that I literally just write songs for fun and to process what I'm going through, and I love it. I've loved music since I was little. It's been a part of my life. I don't want to be one of those influencers who's like, now I'm doing music. It's always been a part of my life, and I was pursuing it for a couple years. Went through all the doors and then they all closed and just felt like it wasn't the right path anymore. And I still love music. I still love songwriting. I still do those things, just not trying to pursue it on a professional level. So my grandma and I went to Nashville because I had decided last semester of senior year, I don't want to go to law school. That was my plan. I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to do music. So we went to Nashville. After Nashville, I went into a tailspin, and I believe this was just major anxiety, feeling like, what on earth is going on? I thought I was going to go and meet with someone that we know in the industry. He was going to hear my songs and be like, you have nothing to offer the world. You shouldn't pursue this. Move on. He didn't do that. And he was like, keep writing. You have something special. And I was like, that's not what I expected to hear. I kind of wanted to just pursue it and be like, oh, I pursued it. It didn't work out. Okay, moving on to the more logical thing. That's not what happened. So have major anxiety about that. Kind of, I pursue it, figuring out what I want to do. I do jobs, odds and ends, all of those things. And kind of have anxiety throughout this entire 3-year time span. And I'm working through it, dealing with it, not really knowing how. And then I decided to, in 2021, 2022, 2021, 2020. I don't know. I can't remember. I think it was 2020, 2021, I signed up for Ariana Grande's BetterHelp free for a month, or I think it was free for a month situation, because I felt like I cannot escape this. This is like covering me. I had a fairly traumatic work experience that had happened at my first ever job after college, just because of the things that I was seeing because of this job, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. And so I just felt like I needed to talk to someone. Loved my BetterHelp therapist. She helped me through a lot. We talked. I graduated therapy the day that another very traumatic experience happened to me, which was lovely. But I felt like I had the tools to deal with it, and we'll get into that in a minute. So talking with this therapist, realizing that my first therapist I ever went to just treated me in the wrong way and probably just didn't want to deal with someone who wasn't going through like an actual crisis, and was like, oh, she's fine, like she has anxiety, but it's not that bad, essentially. And just kind of walking through some of the things that were triggers for me with the BetterHelp therapist, and all of those things was really, really helpful. But I still felt like a different person, because after COVID, I got really, really, really bad social anxiety, and I'm an extrovert, but like I didn't want to go out and do things. Doing things with people made me really, really nervous. I forgot how to interact with people, and that made me nervous because I don't know how to talk to people anymore. And I used to be really good at that, and now I feel like I stumble over my words. I say the wrong thing. I sound crazy. I sound stupid. I overshare. I just don't know what's socially acceptable anymore. So I would get so anxious about that, and I decided I needed to take a job that would let me have my extrovertedness in a way that it felt like it would build it back up. Worked at that job for like a year, and essentially had something happen, walked away from the job. I just felt like it was better for my personal safety and mental health to walk away, and didn't feel like I was valued the way I should be and protected the way I should be, and it just wasn't going to be safe for me if I stayed much longer. So left that job, started nannying, which was super healing, but that job left me with massive anxiety as well. And I had just gotten Shay for my anxiety because my BetterHelp therapist recommended I get a dog. She was super helpful. She would like sit on my chest when I was super anxious because of what I was going through. And I didn't leave the house for a while because that was like super daunting to me. And my anxiety, when I'm in that, it feels like I'm gonna throw up, which is anxiety producing for me because it's one of my biggest fears. Weirdly, yes, throwing up is one of my biggest fears. So I feel like I'm gonna throw up, and then I start panicking because I feel like I'm gonna throw up, and I can't shut off the thought that I'm gonna throw up, but I know I'm not gonna throw up, but I know it's just my anxiety, and it just turns into this giant thing. And often it's either the way that my body's feeling. So my anxiety like takes over my entire body. Sometimes I can't breathe. Sometimes I just feel like my chest is really tight. Sometimes I feel like I'm gonna throw up. Sometimes I feel like I'm gonna pass out. I get a stress migraine, which is gnarly. All of those sorts of things are kind of how my anxiety manifests itself, at least up until this point. And go through all of this stuff, graduate therapy, have another traumatic experience happen, feel like I've kind of walked through it, but still have anxiety, but doing better, you know. Nannying was super healing and great. And all of a sudden I decide, you know what, I'm going to plan to move. And this was probably a year ago. I haven't moved, spoiler alert. But I really, really want to. It would be really good for me, but it basically paralyzes me to think about because I am so afraid of change, even though I so need change. And that's one of the big triggers for my anxiety. That and just believing lies, which were fed into by my experiences for sharing about having anxiety with some of my so-called friends. I never felt like I was good enough if I was struggling. I felt like I always had to be the strong friend, the strong person, the person who had their life together, and my life was not together at all. I was faking it, and I wasn't making it. I was only faking it. And I just kind of felt like everything was crumbling. I felt like no one really was there for me. I didn't see the people that were there for me because there were people who were there for me. They're no longer in my life, sadly, but for other reasons. But I never felt like who I was lovable or worthy, and I felt like I was always alone and on my own and no one understood. And that was validated, but it also wasn't true. Like, there are people in my life who fully understand, and they pick up the phone when I call because they know I'm freaking out, at least if they can, and then they're really kind about it, and they're so accepting and so loving through it. And it took me a while to find those people, but they're out there. And then recently I've been having a new type of anxiety attack, which has been literally like trembling and my limbs twitching like crazy, and it's just uncontrollable, and I don't know what's going on, and that's really, really scary for me. I think it's a mixture of a lot of things, but it's been like paralyzing for 2 months. I just feel like I'm not able to do much, and I haven't figured out where I want to move because I have analysis paralysis, and that makes me anxious. I am starting to deplete my buffer, which I had saved up for. So I'm like, I need to move and get a job, or I need to get a job here, but then I'm scared that if I get a job here, I'm going to want to stay here. And I know it's not, I need to go have a new experience. Anyways, there's just a lot on my mind, but I have always been like, ever since a kid, I don't like change. Change has always been really hard for me. I would stress out about my performance in school on like an unreal level. I'd think through every worst case scenario in the book. Like, I had an escape plan if there was a fire and I got trapped upstairs, because my room was upstairs when I was little. Like, that was a big fear of mine. I had it all mapped out. I had everything that I'd want to take mapped out. I would even pack a bag. Sometimes if I was really nervous, I'd pack a bag. Like, this is all the stuff that I want. I would stop myself from throwing up because I'd be so anxious about throwing up. I'd literally just physically not allow myself to throw up. I would physically get sick. I'd get stomach pains when I was super, super nervous. I would literally like freak out before a theater show that I had, or before a performance that I had, but I didn't know that I was having anxiety. And I think those stomach pains that I had, I was diagnosed with stomach migraines as a kid, and I think they were really panic attacks because I get stress migraines as well. And so I think that's a physical form and manifestation of that anxiety and of those anxious feelings. And I legitimately think that those were a form of panic attacks for me, and I just had no idea. My mom tried to tell me so many times, but I just wouldn't listen. I wasn't willing to hear it. I was like, no, like, this is just how I am. Like, I'm normal. This is just how I am. And it is part of me, but it's not how I want to be. And I feel like I'm doing, other than the last 2 months, I've been doing better with dealing with it. But I think I just have so many big changes and big things looming that it's overwhelming me. And there's stuff going on at home with like my dogs. My dogs don't really get along, and that's stressing me out because my dog is taking it really, really hard. And so she's acting different, and she's acting really scared and just not like herself, and that makes me nervous. So there's just a lot of factors. And I just wanted to share what the journey has been like for me. That's a very short sum. There's a lot of like things I could go into, but I feel like that kind of covers the big journey for me. And now we're going to get into some of the things that I have learned help. I am not good at doing this, but consistent exercise is so helpful. I know that I feel better after doing a workout. I know that. Do I always do it? No. I know it feels better to, when I'm feeling like I'm going to be anxious, get up and go for a walk. Feel out the emotions. The other thing, feel all the feelings. Feel them all. Don't try and shut them off. That's going to make it worse because it's just going to shove them down, and it'll build up and it'll become a bigger thing later. feel all the feelings. Allow yourself to feel the feelings, even if they're irrational, even if you know it's crazy to be thinking these things. Like I convince myself I'm dying sometimes, like I'm having a heart attack, whatever. I am not. I am just feeling anxious. But I allow myself the space to feel those things. And then I feel those things and I tell myself, okay, that was a lie, moving on. Now, if I'm feeling like, oh, something's coming, I will try and declutter my space. I will try and take extra self-care measures, like do a facial steam, do a face mask, do things that are calming to me, have a more relaxing day as much as I can. When I am anxious but not in the state of panic and I'm not having a panic attack, I will try and take a shower. Showers just seem to clear my head, so I'll take a shower. I will listen to a podcast. I'll listen to music. I'll go play my piano. I'll go write a song. What else? I'll make myself a little cup of tea, especially on recovery days after I've had a panic attack. I'll often make tea and just try and take it easy. And then I try and do some small productive things, but not like I don't want to take on a big project, but I'll try and do some small productive things that take my mind off of being anxious and onto something that is more healthy. And then I'll feel like I did something with my day, and that feels really good and can reset my mind as well. I've learned that sometimes doing things with my hands, like writing is what I was going to say, but journaling, or I was building this like gingerbread house the other day. I was like, wow, this is like a great focus for my mind. So things like that, getting like an adult coloring by numbers book or whatever, something like that works for me. And then when I'm having a panic attack, not a lot works, but I've tried a cough drop and that really, really helps. I focus on my breathing. I focus on my touch. I listen to Shawn Mendes's book reading on the Calm app, because that literally, his voice, I don't know why, his voice in that just is soothing. I'll listen to instrumental music, not really classical music, but like instrumental versions of songs like that I like. And that will help, and I'll just keep that in the background. Sour candy helps because it just kind of gets your senses going. I try and engage all of my senses as well as much as possible. So touch, taste, smell, see, light a candle, eat something, eat a candy. I focus on like touching my hands together, or sometimes like I'll do this on my collarbone, or I'll like lightly tickle my hand because it gets a sensation going and it feels good, and it just takes your mind off of feeling anxious. And I also try and limit my caffeine intake because caffeine adds to it. So that has been helpful. It's really hard, but it's helpful. So if you struggle, I highly recommend trying reducing your caffeine intake. I still have caffeine, but I just try and have it every other day. I try not to have it every day, or, take time in between, order decaf instead. I think that's kind of all of my anxiety relief things that work for me. That's gonna be the end of this video. I just wanted to say that this might seem pretty jumbled, like thinking back on all the things that I was saying. I feel like I didn't have a set plan. I just was going to talk about it, so it might feel like it pinballs, but I hope you gain something from this. If you have anxiety, I hope that my tips can help you. I hope that just even talking about it and opening up about it can help you feel like you're not alone, and that your thoughts aren't unique to you necessarily. I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that sometimes you feel crazy and you're not crazy. Other people think those things and feel those things as well, and experience that type of panic and anxious thoughts that just can fill your head. Anyways, that's been my journey with anxiety. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. I'm thankful you're here on this channel and just here in general. Until next time.